Thai lawmakers have voted to pass 2 bills on constitutional reform, rejecting 5 other proposals. And this comes as protesters return to the streets of Bangkok. Less than 24 hours ago, at least 6 people were shot in the most violent clashes in months. Well, Saksitsa Sombat and May Wong are standing by live in Bangkok. But first, a look at what's brought us to this point.
A day after violent clashes rocked Bangkok, anti-government protesters are back on the streets. This time round, many have gas masks and goggles ready, and water cannon trucks have been spotted at the police headquarters. The show of force comes as Parliament votes on changes to the Constitution, with 7 bills on the line. Over 50 people were injured in yesterday's clashes. Some say they suffered gunshot wounds, but police have denied using live rounds or rubber bullets.
We are still working on it. It's been the process of investigation into who might have been behind the shooting. As I previously announced that no rubber or live bullets were used by the authorities for yesterday's police operation. That was confirmed, but as for the person who might have been behind the gunshot, we are still working on it. We are digging into more information on that.
The clashes were the most violent in Thailand since the student-led movement emerged in July.
Saksith, we'll come to you first. Voting has finally ended in Parliament, but it's not exactly what protesters had been hoping for. Get us up to speed.
No, absolutely not, Steve. That is absolutely not what the protesters here wanted. 7 draft bills were on the line, on the table in Parliament, all concerning to various degrees of complexity and severity of constitutional changes. Only 2 bills, one by the coalition government and one by the main opposition party, Pheu Thai, have gained a majority, and they only cover the establishment of a so-called constitutional drafting committee. So basically, only the bare minimum. All the other bills by opposition politicians and one by civic group I-Law, they actually cover far more reaching changes. They, for example, want to curb the powers of unelected officials and also reverse many of the political and legislative legacies of the previous military government, including the 250 senators that have been all appointed by the previous military government, but they have all voted in today's session, in today's joint session between the appointed senators and the 500 elected MPs. So they had a say, of course they had a say in those matters that would concern them, and of course they all have rejected them. That is absolutely what the protesters did not want. As I said, they have referred to the I-Law draft as the people's draft, and they have said that since the draft has been rejected, that also means that the will of the people has been rejected.
Now, Saksit, let's talk about this drafting committee. What is next for them?
Well, as like with any bills, this was just the first reading. It has to pass through 2 more readings in order to become actual to fruition. With the Constitutional Drafting Committee here, the question is now, which of one of these 2 bills are they going to get? Are they going to get the one where a part is being appointed and the rest is being elected by the people, or one where all members of the drafting committee are being elected? And even if we have a drafting committee, they still need some time to come up with all the changes that they think it's needed to amend the 2017 Constitution, which, by the way, was drafted during the military government of past years. And even then, at the end, we will also possibly have a public referendum. So we could be seeing at the timeline, some experts have said we could be seeing at the timeline of about 2 years until we actually get to the end of the road of constitutional changes there. But that might not be long enough for the protesters. That might be too short for the protesters, who have been demanding for months for vast political changes of the whole political system, including the resignation of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, a new constitution, and also the most ambitious part, reform of the monarchy that was once believed to be officially sacrosanct.
Right, let's turn our attention to May Wong now. Over to you, May. Now, how are the protesters reacting to the outcome of today's vote? Not too pleased, I imagine?
Not not too pleased, but also pretty much nonchalant at this point, given the fact that when the parliamentarians were in the House voting, the people were already out here in downtown Bangkok gathered. So they're not really paying attention to what is really going on inside the Parliament House. More importantly as well, the fact that the people here say they are not surprised with the outcome of the vote by the parliamentarians. They never expected the parliamentarians to actually vote for this people's draft constitutional amendment to begin with. They always knew that the government was going to perhaps dominate and also control the voting rights of a lot of the members of parliament, namely dominated by the government-appointed senators. And so the people here completely expressing no surprise at the outcome today, and also part of the reason why they're gathering in downtown Bangkok and not in front of the Parliament House like they did on Tuesday. Now, more importantly as well, they also brought up three particular points. One is they say they're not surprised by it, but two, they say actually there is a little bit of a positive move in this, given the fact that now at least the parliamentarians are discussing about a possible constitutional amendment, where in the past, if the people did not hold such protests, that subject may never have been brought up in Parliament itself. And that's the positive side of it. Another positivity of this entire outcome is the fact that more people are now starting to be more aware of the Constitution. More people are starting to read up on the Constitution. Now, right now, a lot of people are cheering. I'm not sure exactly what is going on, but just a while ago, I do understand that some of the protest leaders are asking people to now start to move towards the police headquarters, which is just around the corner, about a 10-minute walk. And they wanted to go over to the police headquarters over there because they say that they wanted to show the fact that the police are here to protect the people and not hurt the people. And so this is a sign to say that the police must keep their roles and responsibilities in check, and also to move over to the police headquarters to show their displeasure when the police use force, using the water cannons as well as the tear gas against them. So now, as you can see, the people are now starting to move towards the police headquarters, which is about a 10-minute walk, like I say, from here. Earlier, I've already seen how the police headquarters have barricaded themselves by setting up barbed wires and also stationing more police officers inside the headquarters to make sure that the protesters don't break through. So clearly, this is a stepped-up security on the police's part, given the fact that the people are clearly extremely unhappy with their actions.
Yeah, given their unhappiness, May, and also the movement, as you mentioned, heading towards the police station, after yesterday's clashes, are both sides bracing for more unrest tonight?
Well, they are bracing for anything to happen, given how they experienced the Tuesday firing of the water cannons laced with dye as well as tear gas, and also the firing of tear gas canisters. So today I did observe the fact that many of these people are actually coming out with helmets and goggles, and also some of them are wearing masks as well to prevent any sort of a tear gas firing. Now, I just want to point you to the rubber duckies that are being floated right now across the protesters. Now, this is kind of significant, and also in a way to show the fact that they were using these rubber duckies on Tuesday evening to fend off the water cannons that were fired at the anti-government protesters. And that's the reason why they have brought these so-called heroes out here this evening to the cheers of many of the anti-government protesters, because the rubber duckies did save the protesters from some of the high water jets that were being hit onto the protesters. And so they continue to march and they continue to walk, but earlier they were also concerned about whether or not the police are going to crack down on them again. But remember here that they are surrounded by a lot of the shopping malls, and they're hoping that the police will not take any action in a violent manner against the anti-government protesters, because there are a lot of children that I observe as well within the crowd here. So it will not be a really positive move to hit out or to get violent or physical with the anti-government protesters. I want to make one last point here. The police actually defended their actions to say that it was justified to fire the water cannons because the protesters were creating an insecure environment towards Parliament House. And that's the reason why today we're seeing perhaps a slightly notch down in terms of a physical attack.
Yeah, it could be a long night ahead. Thanks, May Wong and Saksisa Sombat earlier for speaking to us about the latest developments out of Bangkok, which we will be keeping an eye on here on CNA. In fact, we'll be asking the question, if the vote in Parliament will in any way appease protesters in Thailand. We'll be taking a closer look later on Asia Tonight.